Hello, how are you? I'm Kim Hansen from thenakedleader.org. I am a salon coach or a salontrepreneur coach. I welcome you. Thank you for joining me on my webinar. The topic today is what's the #1 salon killer? What's the #1 salon killer? And that is gossip. That's the topic for today. My goal for you today, or my intention for this webinar, is so that you can take what I provide you, or the little bit of information, or maybe hopefully a lot of information, that you can take it back to your salon and implement some of the strategies that I'm going to offer you today. So we're going to jump right in, and I am going to screen share because I always think that having some sort of visual rather than just myself is a positive thing. So here we go. We've got my screen share up. And so the #1 culture killer, 4 action steps for salon entrepreneurs. What are those 4 action steps? I'm going to give you the 4 action steps in the end of the webinar. It will take probably about 20 minutes. So if you can just stop what you're doing and get out a pen and a piece of paper or some sort of notes so that you can take notes, that would be great. Put away your phone if you're not listening to me on your phone, and focus in on just this next 20 minutes or half an hour and learn and educate yourself on what I hopefully will be an educational little webinar. So the #1 culture killer is gossip. All right, I've already said that. The #1 culture killer is gossip. And it affects the salon security. And I'm going to get a little bit into security in a few slides here, but gossip erodes trust. It negatively impacts culture. It engages negative people in your business or in your salon, even in your life, because obviously, I mean, I think we all at some point gossip. I don't think anybody is without gossiping or talking about something. But you know, part of what we're going to define is what is considered gossip to you. But gossip generally engages negative people or negative behaviors. It puts lids on positive people. Actually, it puts lids on everyone. Everyone around you. Gossip has a tendency to put a lid on that. And what I mean by putting lids on people is stopping them from growing past where they already are. You're putting a lid on someone so that they can't flourish and grow past where they already are. And it's creating emotional, mental, and physical insecurity. It affects everyone's financial growth. Everyone, your financial growth, your team's financial growth, everybody in the salon, when they're engaging in gossip, it affects the financial growth. It increases the turnover of a business or of a salon, or attrition rate. And it also takes away from your ATM. Now, what is your ATM? ATM is attention, time, and money. And you can think of it as a bank account that we invest in, or a savings account that we're investing in. We invest our attention, our time, and our money into something. And when we make withdrawals from that savings account, we're taking out and we're depleting that bank account, or that savings account, or that ATM account. So when we're engaging in any kind of negative thinking, negative behavior, negative emotion, like gossip, we're taking away and we're withdrawing from our ATM, or from our attention, our time, and our money. So we can invest all this attention, time, and money into something, and if there's too much negative behavior, too much negative thinking, too much negative emotion going on, we're making more withdrawals than what we've actually put into it. And what happens, and we end up broke or in a negative balance. So we want positive, right? So gossip dies when it hits a wise person's ears. I always want to say gossip dies when it hits a wise person's eyes, because it rhymes. But gossip dies when it hits a wise person's ears. And even if you're in a leadership position in your salon and you're a salon entrepreneur, if you allow any type of gossip or trash talking to happen within your business, it's not a very wise thing to do. So, and this is a huge problem in a lot of salons. This, hairdressers, service providers, people have a tendency to want to engage in that gossip. It just seems to be the nature of kind of what we do. But even when we have a client in our chair and we're engaging in gossip about another person, it's not a very wise thing to do, because we never know who somebody knows, right? So it's best to just not engage and to shift the subject so that we don't even hear what the gossip is. Behaviors versus thinking. So we think that behaviors decide if the culture is successful. And this is a typical thinking, that if we build positive behaviors, and we're always focusing on the behaviors of people around us, and we think that if we build positive behaviors, or if we stop negative behaviors, that it will grow a successful culture. But success or lack of success is rooted in our thinking. Everything, all of our behaviors are rooted in how we think as people. So thinking drives emotion. The thinking is the bottom level, like the deep down part of us. That's our thinking. And that thinking drives a particular emotion, which then drives the behavior. So in order to change the behaviors, we must change the thinking first. I'm going to repeat that. In order to change the behaviors, we must change our thinking first. And most importantly, we need to change our own thinking, how we think about things. So in our thinking and thinking about gossip, right, our thinking needs to change, that it's not the behavior of gossip that we need to change. It's the actual thinking around the gossip that needs to change. To think that it's okay, to think that that's an acceptable practice in our business. That's what needs That's what the core root of all behaviors is, our thinking. So what does gossip do? We've defined what the negative things that gossip does, but negative thinking, bottom line, it breaks down the security. It breaks down people's security. It breaks down the security of the business. And your biggest job as a leader or as a salon entrepreneur is to create security in your business and within your team. So if we allow gossip and if we allow trash talking, we're creating, or we're giving carte blanche to a lack of security. And without a secure environment, no one thrives. And I don't mean, financial security. I'm talking there's emotional security, there's mental security, and then there's physical security. And financial security is actually a component of physical security. I don't know if I said that right. Financial security is a component of our physical security. I did put that in the slide as a separate component, but it actually is a component. Our finances is a component of our physical security. So without a secure environment, no one thrives. And gaps create breakdowns in security, accusing or causing negative thinking, leading to negative behaviors. Gossip is just one of those negative behaviors. So the gaps that we have in our business is what causes the breakdown in insecurity. So we're going to talk about defining those gaps in a minute, but I want to talk about the emotion part of the thinking, which drives the emotion, which then drives the behaviors. So what are people starving for? Every single person needs to feel accepted, approved, or have approval. They need to feel appreciated, and people need love and attention. Now, I don't know that everybody is starving for that, but that's a general desire for people to have. And as a leader or as a salon entrepreneur, you want to have that forefront in your mind that the people that are within your business, the people that you lead, the people who choose to follow you, the people who choose to trust you, they need acceptance and approval and appreciation and attention from you. And when I went through my coaching training, this was kind of an aha moment for me, because I realized that I was a pretty hard person to work for. I had very high expectations of my staff, and I had a very definitive culture. And sometimes I said things, I didn't mean to say them in this way, but I didn't think that what they were thinking is that they weren't accepted or approved or appreciated by me. So we need to, just as much as we need to counteract this negative thinking or these negative behaviors and negative emotions, we need to, like 10 times as much, give acceptance, approval, and appreciation and attention to people. And these needs, when these are met by the leader, it creates it creates a sense of security and clear, and we need to be clear, and we need to be consistent in our environment for people to live, work, and earn in this secure environment that we want to create. So what are the gaps? What are these gaps that we have there's 4 major gaps that most salons have. And when I coach, these are sort of the gaps that I look for. And these are the gaps that have a tendency to create the negative thinking, which create the negative behaviors. And these gaps create lack of security. So number 1 is, and these aren't like in order of like, this is the number 1 thing to number 4 thing. These, you can have one of these gaps, you can have all of these gaps. There's not one thing that's placed in any order of priority. So number 1 is everything begins and ends with your foundation. Foundation of your business is the biggest thing that you want to invest ATM in, attention, time, and money. So what are some things that you can do to define what your foundation is? Because oftentimes people do not have a very defined foundation. A lot of times people are hairdressers and they think, oh, I really want to have a business. I really want to own a salon. It's a dream of mine to have a salon. But they don't really think about the foundation of what it is that they're going to build. So the first thing that you might want to do, this is a tip, is to write down the character qualities that you value. That you value, not that somebody else values, but you value. Maybe one of those character qualities is honesty. Honesty is always a big character quality. Whatever qualities that you value in a person's character, integrity. Let me think of a few other. I'm sort of at a loss here with them. But there are certain character qualities. Maybe somebody's fun or joyous, or family might be important to them. Whatever is important to you in a person's character, I want you to write those down. Then I want you to discover a clear, singular purpose that means something to you. This is very hard for a lot of my coaching clients to do. And oftentimes it takes sometimes 4, 5, 6 months for me to really hit on something that is their core purpose of what they want to build off of. And for me in my salon, it was all about unity. Everything we did was about unifying the team and unifying the culture. And there is a reason for that. And it's because of an experience that I had back in 2006. And in 2006, what happened is a boy was hit outside my house, in front of my house. And there was all this chaos going around. My neighbor comes out and he's yelling at me. You know, he's got a cell phone in his hand. He's yelling at me, Kim, do you know CPR? Kim, do you know CPR? And I do know CPR. So I was the only one in this little group of people that knew CPR. And here was this boy laying in front of this white van. And he was a 9-year-old boy. And he was laying there convulsing with vomit coming out of his mouth. And as I knelt down, I grabbed his wrist to feel his pulse. And he did have a steady pulse, and he wasn't breathing. And as I was quickly summing up this whole scenario, like in my mind, so fast, I noticed in the back of his head, his brains were exposed. And just as I noticed that, I felt his entire body go limp. He quit convulsing. He quit vomiting, but I still had my hand on his wrist feeling his pulse. And at that very moment, and I'm not kidding you, I felt through almost my body, I felt his entire spirit lift up above into what I guess you would call it the universe. And at that very moment, I had no idea who this boy was, but at that very moment, I knew exactly who that boy was. And it took me months to process that. But what I came to is that if people only understood the spirits and the power that our spirits have, and the lightness and the uniqueness of our spirits, if people only understood that and understood how special they were and came together to unite for one common thing, one common mission, how incredibly powerful that would be. So that became my entire life's purpose. It still is today, to unite people together for one common purpose. So my goal for salon owners is to unite you with your team for your mission or your purpose, because the power in that unity is absolutely incredible. And after I started shifting the thinking and my purpose around that one singular unity thing or one single unity mission, my entire business changed. All my systems were driven off that. Everything was driven off that one common sense of unity for our purpose. So in all of our lives, there's an experience that we have had that have profoundly affected us in a way. And if we can define it down and drill it down to one word, just one word that means something to you on a very deep core level, that is your purpose. And the next thing is stay true to your beliefs. We all have beliefs. We all have, maybe some of you might have spiritual or religious beliefs. Maybe some of us may have beliefs that are driven from a previous experience. Whatever beliefs you have, I'm asking you in your foundation, stay true to your beliefs. Don't allow other people to come in and flip your beliefs because they're telling you that that's what you should believe. If it goes against your intuitive nature, you can stay open-minded, but your beliefs, your core self, okay, the foundation of what we create is our core. It comes from our core beings. So out of those things, you want to decide what culture would authentically fit your values and your purpose. Now, remember this. If you've got a problem with your fruits, you need to fix your roots. Okay? Here's what I mean by that. I love using a tree as explaining to people what the foundation and how a business or how a salon works. So we have a tree, and we have these beautiful flowers and this beautiful foliage on this tree. And we all have a tendency to want to have this beautiful tree, always have these beautiful fruits or these beautiful flowers and this beautiful foliage. But what happens if we don't water the roots to that tree? Or what happens if we overwater the roots on the tree or plant or whatever it is? So it dies, right? The leaves start falling off. Your fruits, you need to know how to take care of that tree. And so the roots are your mission, values, vision, and purpose. The support of the tree or the trunk is all in your effective operational systems. If you notice, though that trunk of that tree grows strong from the roots, so all of your operations are driven by what your values and your purpose and your beliefs are. Then you have your culture, and these are the good behaviors. These are the good emotions and the feel-good part of what we want to create. That's the flourishing blooms or the flourishing leaves, and how big the tree grows, right? But then we have these amazing fruits on it. And we have these amazing flowers, depending on what kind of tree it is. And that is your growth. That's your measurable results. Those results are the fruits. So if you're not seeing the results, oftentimes in your numbers, oftentimes that can be that when I look at somebody's numbers, I can define whether or not their foundation is lacking, because it's some part of this tree that there's a gap. Like that one, you guys? So now the cultures. There are only 4 main cultures. There's a supportive culture. And supportive cultures rely on relationships. There's ingenuity. Ingenuity cultures rely on creativity. There's positional cultures, which rely on defined roles. And there's performance culture, which rely on achievement of goals. So when we think about our values and our purpose and our beliefs that are our foundational part that we want to water, right? We want to think about what kind of culture is going to grow in that tree. And if your mission and your purpose and your vision and your values relies heavily on relationships, and you sort of like that kumbaya and that everybody gets along feeling, that may be that you want to create a supportive culture. If your business relies on creativity, and you're one of those people that are always posting amazing work on Instagram or on social media, you may want to fit into an ingenuity culture. A positional is, and my salon was very much a positional culture. Everybody had their defined roles, because what was important to me is unity. And the only way that I could create unity without overlapping of responsibilities and duties is to create very defined roles so everybody knew their part and everything ran very smoothly. And if growth and numbers, and you're a very numbers-driven person, then maybe performance culture would work best for your salon. I will say that I would not suggest you saying, well, I kind of want to be a supportive culture, but you know, I like a role culture too. Because those, you can have parts of a supportive culture if you're a role culture, but you want your culture to be very, very clear and defined in order to create the security and the clarity for your team. So the second thing, the second pain point or the second gap is building strong operational systems. That's that trunk, right? That trunk that we're talking about. And what does the trunk do? The trunk of a tree carries the water from the roots up to the tree, up to the foliage, up to produce the roots. So without strong operational cultures, we cannot effectively carry the message of the purpose and of our mission and of our values and of our beliefs. We cannot carry those up to the foliage and the fruits of the tree. So one of the systems is hiring system, and these are just a few systems. These are just a few of the systems that we can create. Hiring, yes, it is a system. So, and this is often, a lot of times, salon entrepreneurs do not have written down step-by-step process of what their hiring system looks like. If you hire right, less things will go wrong in the future. So we also have a tendency, and if you've heard me talk about hiring before, because I do a whole class on hiring, if you've heard me talk about it before, hiring should be slow. So there's that saying, hire slow and fire fast. Hire slow, because in the end, it will cause you more problems, or a bad hire can cause you a lot of money out of your ATM, right? Because those bad hires, those bad people, they create stress from us, they create sleepless nights for us, and they take from our ATM, they take from our attention, time, and money. Another system is our communication system. So good communication, you want to commit to good communication. A commitment to creating good communicational systems. And then sometimes that happens through consistent staff meetings. And I highly recommend consistent staff meetings. Now, they don't need to be every week. They don't need to be even every month. They can be quarterly. They can be, however you design them to be. You can do daily huddles if you want to do. However you want to design those team meetings, whether short or long or marathons, however you want to do that, make sure that they're consistent so that people know what to expect in their meetings. And then utilize technology to bring people together. One of the things that I suggest a lot of my people to do is to create a secret Facebook group, and that they only allow their staff and maybe a few others. Some of my coaches add me into the team private Facebook group. Some don't, but it's technology, and there's all kinds of different technology out there. I highly suggest you do not use text messaging as a way to end or to communicate with your team. in some ways, a lot of times you can post a video and just do a little video on your phone and post it to your team page on Facebook. There's all different, and I'm sure a lot of you are more technical than I am, because I have to say I'm not super technical. So there might be a lot of great ways for you to post to engage your team in consistently. And I will also say that if you start a private Facebook page for your team, it's generally not going to take off right away. It's something that needs consistent A, T, and maybe not M, because we don't want to put money into some sort of team bonding technology. So private Facebook groups are free, and but you do want to invest time daily, attention, time, and money. You can post all kinds of cool things in there. Reward. You want to create an operational system around reward for your clients and reward for your staff. Appreciation. One of the really great things that I don't think is done enough is to write thank you cards, and get in the habit of writing thank you cards often to your people. A little handwritten note sometimes means a lot to people. You don't always have to give appreciation by giving them extra money, by giving them financial incentives, because financial incentives come and go. But sometimes in a little handwritten thank you note, that creates so much appreciation in your team. And then service systems. What are the service systems that we want to create in our team? You know, you see the service wheels. You can create your own service wheel. How do you want a client's service to roll out every single time? And that's a system. All these things need to be implemented. All these things need a plan. And then remember this: the bigger the team, the more it will take. So as you grow your team, maybe you just right now, maybe it's just you and 2 other people. But the more people that you add in, the more work it is going to take to make sure that systems stay in place and are consistent and effectively being operated. Okay, I'm going to change to my next slide. Number 3 is communicate early and often. Now, I did say that communication is a system, but communication is also a pain point in many salons. So early and often. You do not want to ignore something. You want to nip stuff in the bud very thoughtfully. I mean, you don't want to react on something, but you do oftentimes want to take action. So most salons have a salon operating and policy and procedure handbook. This is one of my biggest pet peeves, because most salons create this amazing 52-page handbook, right? But they don't do anything with it. It just sits there. Maybe people sign for it. They get it when they start work. You might even go through it, but they probably don't really even read it. And then sometimes it just gets thrown in the trash or gets shoved in their drawer. But, part of the SOP, or the Salon Operating Procedure Handbook, is for bosses to create the secure work environment, right? And a leader's job is to care enough to enforce something. So make sure your SOP or your salon operating procedure handbook contains guidelines that you're actually willing to enforce. They're actually authentic to you. I read an SOP the other day, and in this SOP, he was talking about the executive leadership team, and he was talking about, kind of making the salon seem a lot more bigger and fancier than it was. And when I read it over, I said to him, is this authentic? Is this an authentic handbook? Or is it just sort of an ego thing that you guys want to create, or this is your goal to create that, but that's not exactly authentic to where you are now? We can have goals and we can morph that SOP or that salon operating procedure handbook over time, but start simple. Simple is better. And you have to be willing to enforce it. If you're not willing to enforce it, you might as well just take it out of there. And you can also add in a gossip, what it means to gossip. What defines gossip in your salon? What is that? What is the definition of that? And then what are the ramifications of gossiping in your salon? A lot of people say they have a zero tolerance on, negative behavior or on gossip. But zero tolerance means as soon as they gossip, you're fired. Most salons, most salonpreneurs, they want to give grace. And that's a good thing as a leader, to give grace. So a zero gossip policy, you have to be ready to enforce that the minute somebody engages in gossip, that you're going to fire them, or you're going to at least write them up. And then if they get written up, 3 times, then they get fired, right? So you have to be willing to enforce those things. And I highly suggest that in the gossip section that you create one. Define what it is and define the procedures and the policies around a non-gossiping policy. A culture of secrets or lack of communication build insecurity in creating gossip and miscommunication. Again, there's that word, insecurity. It creates insecurity in your team. If you have secrets, if you don't tell them, if you might tell your front desk person or a person that you trust in your team, and they might get mad at you at some point and then share your secret. You might do something to piss them off, and then they get mad and then start sharing your secrets. So unless you're willing to share it with the entire team, do not share it with one person. Have a coach, have a mentor, have a husband, have a friend, have a boyfriend that has nothing to do with the people that are employed in your business to bounce ideas and thoughts and complaints to. Do not rely on one person in your team. Don't create a special leadership team that only meets collectively. I made this huge mistake. I made a mistake of creating a leadership team out of my education team. And we would meet like twice every other week, I think. And we would meet for an hour and we would talk about how everybody was doing. Well, you would think that would be a good idea. But what happened in those meetings is people got super insecure about it. And then after we broke from the meeting, all the rest of the staff was acting or asking, what happened in the meeting? Did they talk about me? Did you talk about me? Did she talk about me? And it created a lot of insecurity. So unless you're willing to share something with the whole group, then don't create like these secret relationships with people. And that's something that I see happen a lot in salons. Next slide. Fourth pain point. Fourth gap. Be a leader somebody is worth following. Be the leader that you would want to follow. Who would you want to follow? Who do you want to follow? I have people that I follow. I have people that I greatly admire. Some people I have personal relationships with. Some salon owners I have personal relationships with. Some coaches I have personal relationships with. Some manufacturing, people, VPs in manufacturing, I really enjoy and have personal relationships. And for different reasons, I sort of listen to them, and they guide me and they're mentors to me because I want to follow what they do. And create good habits for yourself. Good habits meaning, positive mindset, read, constantly seek inspiration, constantly build your technical skill if that's what you're into. Build your leadership skills, build your business skills, look to refine your systems. Wake up in the morning and meditate if that's your thing, instead of just turning on the news or jumping right in the shower. At night, go to bed. I talk about this often too. At night when you go to bed, review your day and think about the people that maybe you might need to apologize to the next day, so that you can go back and you can humbly apologize for people who you may not have acted very nice to, because let's face it, we're all human. We all make mistakes. And so when people see us apologizing, that gives them a sense of what? A sense of appreciation and a sense of feeling important to us, because we're asking for their forgiveness. And that creates great relationships. So create good habits for yourself. Be consistent. You'll hear about me. You'll hear me talk about consistency, 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 consistency. If you say you're going to do it, you better do it. And you better formulate a plan. And then lead with less. This is actually a class that I teach. I'm not going to get too into leading with less. But what leading with less means is to listen more than you speak, to elevate, to sacrifice, and then to serve. We as leaders, we as salon entrepreneurs, we serve the people. People do not serve us. Action step. Now we're to the action steps, guys. So what are the 4 action steps to end gossip forever in your salon? First thing you do is you identify your gaps. You have your foundational gap, which are your purpose, your values, and your beliefs. You have your systems gaps. You have your communication gaps. You have your hiring gaps, because hiring is a gap, even though it's part of a system, because the 2 systems that gets overlooked more often than anything is hiring, because we're just trying to fill chairs. We might have a salon of 10 chairs, and we're just not wanting to see those 10 chairs open. Doesn't matter if we have butts to sit in the chair, but we just want those 10 chairs open. But we need to be thoughtful about who we want to hire, the values that we want to hire, the people we want to attract people to believe what we believe. And if we have a salon of 10 chairs, and there are how many millions or thousands of hairdressers in your community or your town, all you're looking for are those 10 people that fit in to the foundation and the culture that you want to create. And then leadership. leadership is the other part, the other gap that we want to fill. So identify where your gaps are of the main pain points. I only actually went over 4, so this is 5, but these are the 5 main pain points of most salon owners. It's what I work in most. When I work with a client, it's what I talk about most. And usually what I'll do is I'll identify what their gaps are, and then we lead to the second action step. The second action step is list your gaps in order of biggest impact. What do you think is going to have the biggest impact in narrowing that gap, to create security for your team, to create trust within your team? Because the foundational thing to leadership and to influence is trust. If people don't trust you, doesn't matter what you do, you cannot influence their thinking. Okay, remember, it starts with thinking. It doesn't start with behavior. We see their behaviors. We don't always see their thinking. And sometimes we see their emotion. And sometimes we don't even see that. So when we identify behaviors, we always need to get to the thinking. So what is going to create the biggest impact? And when you make your list, let's say communications, leadership, and hiring are your biggest pain points. List in order which one you want to start with first, and then just start with that. And then maybe it's communication. Maybe you need to work on your salon operating procedure handbook. Maybe you need to create authenticity with that. Maybe you need to work on your salon meetings. Maybe you need to, learn how to communicate quickly with people. Whatever is your biggest gap, or what you think is creating the biggest insecurity in your team, that is what you start with first. You don't start with all of them because it's way too overwhelming. And be thoughtful before you act. And that's that. We're going to get into planning in a minute. Get feedback from people. Get feedback in the salon about what they feel are the biggest gaps, and then listen to them without you thinking. Just absorb the feedback. Maybe you might want to get from a friend, client, whatever it is. Get as much feedback as you can to decide where your gaps are. And then take time planning. Taking time and planning creates less headache later. So that brings me to my third action step. My third action step is create a step-by-step plan. Successful implementation depends on the 3 C's. What are the 3 C's? Clarity, communication, coaching, commitment, and I will always say this, consistency. Consistency, consistency, consistency. Okay? So when you create your step-by-step plan, okay, so you decide that communication is causing insecurity in your salon, a lack of trust in your salon, you're not communicating your policies and your procedures properly. So what's the step-by-step plan? Maybe you need to review your SOP. And you need to really define what it is that's important to you to put in that SOP. You need to define a non-gossip policy. You need to define what gossip means. You need to define what the action steps that are taken to a person who engages in gossip. What are those things? Maybe leadership. maybe it's you that you need to start with. Maybe you need to learn better leadership skills in creating better habits for yourself, in creating more consistency in yourself, in creating more clarity around the foundation of what you want to create, on how to build trust with your team. Maybe it's the leadership part that you really need to learn. And so you create a step-by-step plan of what you need to do. Maybe part of that leadership plan is, I need to hire a coach. You can hire me. I'm a leadership coach. But there are other coaches out there. I'm honestly not the only one. You surely, even though I would love to have more coaching clients and I would love to help you, you need to define those steps. Maybe you need to take some classes. Maybe you need to read some books on leadership. Maybe you need to listen to some podcasts just to get the inspiration and start changing and implementing those changes slowly. Maybe that's your first and your biggest gap that you need to work at. But whatever you do, you need to get clarity, and you need to create communication. Like if you were lacking in leadership, maybe going to your team and saying, you know what, I don't think I've been the best leader for you guys, and I am going to learn better leadership. And I'd really appreciate it if you guys just help me to understand and feel comfortable coming to me and giving me positive feedback. Maybe creating a blind survey for your team so that you don't know who said it, and and then reviewing that. There's all kinds of things that you can do to create communication. And then coaching, what are those, who is going to coach you? Can you afford coaching? Can you not afford coaching? Do you need to do memberships? Do you need to listen to these free lives like I'm doing? What do you need to do? And then consistently do it. And action step number 4, this is our last action step, and I'm almost done, I promise. And if you hang on for me for a little bit longer, I'm going to give you a little treat. Action step number 4 is implementation. Implement, take action. When we implement a well thought out plan that's step by step, and we have very clear steps on what we're going to do, and they're written out, and it's almost like a flow chart of this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm going to do. We have to monitor it consistently. So we have to constantly monitor whether it's effective. Is whatever we're implementing effective? Is the gossip portion of our SOP, is it effective? And if it's not effective, what do you need to do? Maybe it is enforcement. Maybe you need to enforce a little bit more and being a little bit more diligent on that. And then impact. What kind of impact is what you're implementing having on your team? And then the next thing is evolution. We always want to evolve. If something's working, fine, leave it alone. If it's broke, don't fix it. However, if we're constantly looking and evaluating things, the effectiveness and the impact things have, then what happens is when we need to tweak it, then we can evolve, just as like we've evolved on social media. A lot of you are learning social media. A lot of you are learning how to market on social media. We're evolving in that. Well, we need to evolve in these other steps within our business, and sometimes pay less attention to the social media and putting butts in chairs in order to, when people come into this environment that you're creating or this business that you're creating, that the clients feel safe, that new hires feel safe, that reps feel safe, that everybody that comes into your business feels super, 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 super safe, because that is what builds trust. That's what builds likability. That's what makes people want to hang around there. So I want to thank you all tonight for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. I hope it was helpful. I hope you had a little takeaway of something. Maybe you've heard me say some of these things before, but I hope you learned something new. I hope you'll be able to take some of these things back to your salon and end gossip forever, because I guarantee you, if you close the gaps and you create security in your business and you give people attention and appreciation and and you create these systems that bring the water up that trunk of that tree to create that amazing culture, whichever one of the four fits into your foundation best, I guarantee it will end the gossip forever. But it ends with you ending it as the leader. Okay? And for hanging on with me tonight, here's the deal. You get a free 60-minute consultation with me via Zoom. We're live, we're talking to each other, and we're gonna work in those 60 minutes on your gap, on your number one gap. If you haven't defined your number one gap, then what we're gonna do is then we'll spend the 60 minutes defining what that one gap is. And if you would like that 60-minute free consultation and you'd like to take advantage of it, just email me at kim@kimhansen.net and ask for a killer consult, okay? Mention killer consult in the subject section of your email, in the body of your email, somewhere in the email, a killer consult, and you will get a free 60-minute consultation to work on the number one gap in your business to end gossip forever. Okay? Hope you guys enjoyed that and hope you learned something, as that was my intention and goal, is to help you end gossip in your salon forever so you can have a peaceful, serene, secure work environment. That's it for me. Again, I'm Kim Hansen from thenakedleader.org. If you visit my website, please visit my website. There's also a kind words page on there. It would be great if you did get something out of this, if you would go on there and just leave a little message for me, and I will post it, because I always like to be appreciated and have kind words to me too, because I need affirmation as well. So you guys have a great night and have a great week, and don't hesitate to reach out for your killer consult. Bye.